The neighborhood we see and experience today is not the neighborhood we grew up in.
One of Seattle's beloved neighborhoods is working to adapt for a new era while preserving its soul.
We want to uplift people that have not been heard a lot.
When local LGBTQ musicians weren't invited to the party, they created their own. See the spectacle that's playing out in the treetops. The great blue herons return. These stories and more next on CityStream. Hello, I'm Dennis Bounds, and welcome to CityStream from the Chinatown International District in Seattle. This is home to a vibrant mix of communities and cultures, from Chinatown to Little Saigon and Japantown to Manila Town. Today, a new generation of business owners is keeping that spirit alive and adapting it for a new era, and they're doing it while fighting a tide of gentrification and pandemic woes. Producers David Albright and Enrique Cerna have the story.
The way I would describe International District is it's a product of pre-civil rights era redlining. A lot of businesses have survived, or a lot of businesses have changed their names, and a lot of businesses have been passed down.
Seattle's International District is a bustling mix of old and new. And Mike Vu's Itsumono restaurant is one of the new wave of businesses that's keeping the neighborhood relevant and vital.
A lot of us are trying to preserve all that of what our grandparents or our parents brought, but also creating our own identity and saying, yeah, this is our culture. This is what it means to be an Asian American.
Phnom Penh Noodle House is one of those businesses that's been passed down. Diane Lee and Dawn Ong are two of the three sisters who have taken it over.
The restaurant was just an integral part of our upbringing, so we wanted to carry it on.
It means a lot because we've done so much around here. People know where we are and they know where to come.
Tuwin Tan and Ryan Catabay run Drag and Drop Creative, a multidisciplinary agency that has helped infuse the neighborhood with a fresh aesthetic.
We specialize in logos, websites, branding.
Did you already say websites?
We do websites, yeah, There's definitely a new energy. You see more young people, you see more of the same faces, and I really do feel like we have a strong community and we help each other out.
Despite the energy brought in by these young entrepreneurs, the past couple of years have been an especially tough period for the International District.
The neighborhood we see and experience today is not the neighborhood we grew up in or the neighborhood we want to see for the future. I think the biggest hurdles is the safety.
The start of the pandemic saw a drop in foot traffic and a rise in anti-Asian violence. And Seattle's ongoing spikes in crime and homelessness are each having visible effects.
We live on the Little Saigon side, and if you don't know what the Little Saigon side is, it's after the freeway. And, walking on that freeway is not as fun as it used to be.
International District is going through a lot of changes, and it's at a crossroads right now. There's a lot of development, and we're at a point where we're creating what Chinatown looks like right now.
As the neighborhood goes through this period of rapid growth, business owners point to some nonprofit developments as examples of how growth can occur while respecting the neighborhood character.
Because some of these developments are run by the neighborhood association like SCIPTA, and even in this development, there are certain parameters that they tried to keep to ensure that there's still some neighborhood identity. I mean, this is called Taibin. I think they're very intentional with the name of the building.
I think at least they're trying to make some accommodations to still keep a lot of the identity and the culture in these neighborhoods and try to preserve some piece of the history. If we can't keep these old buildings, we should at least try our best to preserve the history and keep talking about it.
Just to the northeast of the ID is an example of what the neighborhood is working to avoid. In the 1970s, Seattle's Central District was 70% black. Today, it is less than 20%. As Seattle gentrified, the historic character of that neighborhood was largely wiped out. In the ID, there are signs that process may be starting to repeat itself. And that's why these young entrepreneurs work so hard to maintain the neighborhood's identity as a cultural hub. Diane and Don are also motivated by the memories of what the neighborhood once was for their family.
We used to walk from Beacon Hill, that's where we lived, and come down to Chinatown, and we would just run all over.
When the sisters had to look for a new location in 2018, they briefly considered moving out of the neighborhood.
We looked at like Renton and Kent, but nothing felt right. And our hearts came back to the neighborhood where we grew up and where we felt like this was just our neighborhood. This is where we should be.
Nancy Nomalini agrees. She opened her mother yoga studio during the pandemic and says the International District bridges many different cultures.
There's not an exclusivity of like, okay, this neighborhood is only for Chinese people. This neighborhood thrives on other neighborhoods and people coming into it to support the local shops.
Mike Vu says the diversity of cultures is a strength. It's a defining characteristic of both his restaurant and his neighborhood.
For me, I'm half Chinese, half Vietnamese. My business partner, he's first generation Japanese, so that means he immigrated here. My chef, fifth generation Japanese from Hawaii. We all see being American and living in America very differently. But we all agree that, we definitely want this place to be a safe place for everybody to come in, to basically have a taste of our culture.
Even with the challenges and uncertain future, the sisters behind Phnom Penh know they're in the right place.
There's no other neighborhood I'd rather be in. Like Seattle, CID, Little Saigon is it.
Adding to the uncertainty, Sound Transit is proposing a new light rail stop in the heart of the neighborhood. Many people fear it will displace more residents and lead to years of street closures. While it's been an unusually rainy spring, though today we're getting a break, a nearby neighborhood hopes the sun continues to make a strong comeback. Miller Community Center on Capitol Hill is now topped with 132 solar panels. The microgrid ensures the lights will stay on if a windstorm or other outage knocks out power to the building. The project was a collaboration between Seattle City Light, Seattle Parks, and the Washington State Department of Commerce. Producer Pete Kassem takes a look.
We are gathered here to celebrate the completion of our community microgrid project at Miller Community Center, which was done in part by and through a collaboration between our city partners and the state of Washington. And we are so honored to have both Mayor Harrell and Governor Inslee here with us today to help celebrate.
This is sort of a pilot project.
So this community center is now equipped with solar panels, a battery storage system, and microgrid controls.
So for Seattle City Light, this is the first of its kind. This is a solar plus storage microgrid. We are able to harness the energy from the sun.
And it is the beginning of a revolution. Where there is a rooftop in the state of Washington, there is potential free energy. And it is our job now to make sure we maximize those rooftops. To my knowledge, this is the first of what will be hundreds of community solar-powered projects in the state of Washington.
We're doing this for our children. We're doing this for the next generation.
This neighborhood is benefiting from something that is transformational, not just here in Seattle, but in our world. And we get to model that, and we're modeling it while the kids are watching us.
This microgrid will be able to power this community center for about 24 hours.
Clean, reliable electricity to the community center during a power outage, during an emergency.
As the governor said, the yet is still coming in front of us. The greatness is still coming in front of us. This is the beginning. He called it a revolution. I call it a movement for this kind of collaboration. So this is something to be excited about, and as I say, this is a big deal. I've asked the utility and parks to look at different rooftops and figure out our ask to the state in terms of how we can do this. And so this is replicable.
Clean energy is the future.
Just ahead on CityStream, a group of musicians who say they're being left out take matters into their own hands. We'll explain next. Seattle has a global reputation for producing artists that transform the music industry. And while it's generally viewed as an inclusive community, one group feels left out. So they decided to do something about it. The first ever music and culture festival, known as So Dreamy, is expected to draw hundreds of attendees the first weekend in June. It'll highlight many marginalized voices, including a new wave of LGBTQ and BIPOC artists. Producer Randy Yang has more.
I remember all the times that they told me that I was different.
Like, even though Seattle's predominantly white, I feel like its art and music scene is not. And so it's frustrating to see that not represented enough. So I was like, well, I guess we could just start our own music fest. We're like, what should we call the festival? And we're like, something about like how magical it is or like how communal it is. And then we're like, oh, well, it's kind of like our dream lineup. And we're like, it's so dreamy. And that's just kind of how it came about. It's gonna be like a bunch of different genres. We have like Black Ends, which is gonna be more like gunk pop punk, and then we also have like Superco's, this like a more like surf punk kind of like indie band. We're also gonna have DJs, we're gonna have a ballroom section even, we're gonna have some techno, we're gonna have some just regular like indie music. It's pretty much full genre. I don't think we're gonna have any country, but maybe next fest. I think sometimes like people will take it for granted when they see like certain things on screen. They'll be like, oh, that's just how the way things are. And it's like, but that's not how things have to be. Just because you see a certain demographic represented over and over again doesn't mean that has to be the only one. And so I feel like when it comes to queer musicians and BIPOC musicians, like we're constantly seeing people that don't look like us on screen, on the stage, and it creates this like idea like, oh, that's not for me, but it is for us. We just have to make that space sometimes. Everything's so unreal. It could bring other career opportunities for people that otherwise would have been looked over. I feel like it all encompasses like a really big goal of like, we want to uplift people that have not been like heard a lot. And now I feel like banging on the doors being like, we don't even want like a seat at the table, like we want to make our own table, and that's been really great for me. It's like really like a confidence boost.
And once again, the first ever So Dreamy Music Festival is planned for June 4th and 5th on Capitol Hill. For more information on the lineup of artists, go to this website, sodreamyfest.com. Next on CityStream, what's all the racket in the skies over Ballard? Great blue herons, that's what. And the popular Bert Gilman Trail rolls on. But how did it come about? We'll explain as CityStream continues.
Cleared out. That's right. Our One Seattle Day of Service is a day of service and activities all over the city.
Follow your lead.
We have over 125 events occurring today with almost 4,000 volunteers. From helping to clean graffiti, do some weeding and laying down beauty bark, where there were murals that had aged and some of the paint had faded.
It brightens things up and makes it a happier little city.
And today we had a large group of volunteers that were able to go and help build the tiny homes that we need to help get people off the street and into transitional housing. A number of the food banks were able to open up to allow us to come in and help sort the food and be able to get that out to those in need. It's about giving back and being part of community and meeting new people.
One day, it's all come together.
Helping the community is all of our responsibility. We're going to take a walk. We're going to enjoy our city.
We had support from organizations all over the city who all pitched in to make sure that this day could be as successful as it could be.
It's a reminder that how much work needs to be done.
So I love Seattle, and I want to see it cleaned up, and I've got to be part of the solution.
It validates what we know, and that is people will help when you give them the opportunity, and that's what's going to help us get our city back. This is going to be how we change the narrative. It comes with energy and love and optimism and faith and commitment and all the good things you want in a city.
There's no place like home. We're all here for a short period of time. Make it better.
And so this is really a restart. This is an opportunity for all of us to come together and help put us back on the right track. It's about the spirit that makes us One Seattle. It's about the community. It's about what binds us, what brings us together. As One Seattle, as one collective community, we're working together to move this region forward.
One Seattle!
One Seattle.
One Seattle! One Seattle! One Seattle!
And that's what we're building, One Seattle. Remember One Seattle.
Springtime is always associated with new life in the animal world. And just a few miles from here, a noisy spectacle is playing out as great blue herons begin nesting in the treetops above the Ballard Locks. Producer David Albright takes a look.
The herons love the logs because there's easy feeding around, so they can easily go down and fish. You're also close to Discovery Park, which is also a very important feeding ground for them. That is a brand new nest, and it's just a couple weeks old. So it's cool to see that it once only had like 3 or 4 sticks in it. I think herons are cool because they look like dinosaurs. When they're so large, you can really see their almost personalities.
Sometimes a heron will land too close to another heron's nest, and there's maybe a little bit of a squabble to make sure that that heron backs away. Just telling it, you're in the wrong place, go away.
Today we're monitoring the colony.
Most of what I saw today was incubation. We monitor behaviors that relate to the productivity of the colony. So things like, is there an adult standing on or near the nest? Are there a pair exchanging sticks to build up the nest or to take turns incubating? By the beginning of May, you'll at least hear the chicks calling. You might not see them very well. When they first hatch, they're really kind of adorable when they're this little. Their feet are really big and they grow into their feet.
By June, they're quite big and they're screaming for food all the time. So if you do come to the colony, it's this crazy amount of noise. They're nonstop chattering. In July, they'll be practicing flapping their wings. By August, September, almost all the chicks will have fledged the nest. And by September, you'll come here and there won't be any herons at all. It does seem to be a fairly stable population. The monitoring is important to be able to observe what's happening over the span of time.
I find it remarkable that the colony has increased in spite of all of the human traffic that occurs below it.
It's very, I think, rare to find a whole colony of wildlife right in the city, so I think that's what's really important, because if people don't protect them, then they may not be here forever.
Those herons are nesting a stone's throw from a popular pathway that always attracts a crowd once the weather warms up. From Ballard to Kenmore and beyond, the Bert Gilman Trail provides enjoyment and exercise for thousands of walkers, joggers, and bicyclists. But if not for a determined group of residents, the popular trail never would have been approved. Felix Bonnell has the story.
The Bert Gilman Trail. It can feel like the popular route for pedestrians, bikers, and joggers has always been a part of Seattle, from Ballard to Kenmore and beyond. It's one of the city's best-known public parks for people-powered transportation.
So we're standing within 2 blocks of most of the people who worked on the Bert Gilman Trail in the beginning.
The trail is well known. The story of how people power made it possible, not so much.
I'm Meryl Hilla, and I live down the street 1 block. And Jim Todd, who was the first one to speak with Mayor Ullman in his office, lived right here on the corner. This has really become a very important part of Seattle.
Oh, yeah. 50 years ago, Meryl Hilla and Jim Todd were neighbors in North Seattle. They lived near Matthews Beach, but in between the neighborhood and the park were some seldom used railroad tracks that dated to the 19th century.
A single track railroad, which ran about once every, 2 or 3 weeks. Maybe a 1 or 2 car train would chug through here for many years.
We lived right within vision of the train, and our kids ran to the window to see it every time it went by.
It was 1970, and a TV program about civic activism inspired Jim, Meryl, and a group of like-minded neighbors to take on a project. With changes ahead for the railroad, there was no question what the project should be.
Because we knew that the railroad was getting ready to abandon the right-of-way, and it seemed to us such a natural that it become a hiking and biking trail.
The neighbors formally organized and began an old-school grassroots campaign, printing a brochure and spreading the word person to person.
We made contacts with the mayor and the county executive and tried to get interest from the local governments in doing this, which they didn't jump into it immediately. It took a little ongoing conversation and encouragement until it became something that they were very interested in.
The neighbors found an ally and champion in Seattle Mayor Wes Ullman. It was the Boeing bust, and times were tough. But that didn't matter, as Ullman explained to Cairo Radio in 2017.
The city was broke. We were laying off fire, police personnel. And so some of the protests were saying, we need what little money there is, Mr. Mayor, to be for important things instead of trails. But I felt very strongly that this was almost kind of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to have a trail go through the middle of Seattle.
I was meeting with the mayor frequently, since I was the only one who had a flexible job and a flexible babysitter. So I met with him frequently to talk about our progress, and one day he told me I had to make a hike-in.
The hike-in was a rally on September 12, 1971 that helped galvanize public support. But the city still needed to make a deal with Burlington Northern for the real estate before the old tracks could become a trail. Jim Todd knew the history of the 19th century rail line that was originally called the Seattle, Lakeshore, and Eastern.
When this railroad was first formed, it was donated land from residents of Seattle, donated to the railroad, because the residents of Seattle wanted to be connected to interstate commerce across the country. And originally our pitch was that the railroad should now donate it back to the citizens of Seattle.
And it was a history book that inspired the group to name the trail for railroad founders Daniel Gilman and Judge Thomas Burke.
We were reading a book called Judge Burke, He Built Seattle, and a number of us had read that book, and we were up at Stelberg Tighes when all 3 of us yelled, "It's going to be the Bert Gilman Trail." And it became that.
And that's pretty interesting, and it stuck.
Finally, a deal was struck. The tracks would be replaced with a trail. It would take a few years to fully pave, but for Meryl Hilla and Jim Todd and other families in their neighborhood, one benefit was almost immediate.
Well, this was the access for everyone on the other side of Sandpoint Way. This was the access to Matthews Beach Park. And no one really thought, I don't think, too much about it. That's just how you got to Matthews Beach. You walked across this bridge, which was a railroad bridge at the time.
Well, there was no railing, so we had our kids walk between the tracks so they wouldn't fall over. They just ran ahead. They were happy. Well, Jim, it's really nice to be back to the park.
But helping create the Bert Gilman Trail was never just about helping themselves. It was about creating a one-of-a-kind public space for fun or for getting to work. It was about laying the foundation for what's become a priceless network of trails for everybody.
It is very gratifying. It just makes you feel good that there's a trail for them to be riding on.
I'm very proud.
I am too. This is probably the crowning achievement of my life.
Yeah, same to me. The more crowded it is, the happier I am.
The Bert Gilman Trail is considered a national model for converting rails to trails, and it's inspired countless community groups around the country to organize similar projects. We'll be right back. That wraps up this episode of CityStream from the Chinatown International District. If you'd like to watch more outstanding Seattle Channel programs, visit our website, seattle.gov, and click on Feature Shows. I'm Dennis Bounds. Thanks for watching.